もインフルエンサーの仲間入りか？案件来たりしないかな？ CM 作っ
A cute VTuber versus, yeah, Aoyuki wins hands down.
よっしゃー待機所に集合
We opened this one with a cold opener flashback that would be a little better explained later in the episode. The main takeaway from it was that it was very nicely told through just the tone in the characters' voices and their general body language, was that this was fairly early into Aoyuki's VTubing career, and probably the first time she and Masho had a more casual conversation. We could tell this was before they became a comedy duo, as this was also when they came up with their pet names for each other.
ゆきちゃんのこと好きだから。はいなんでそんなに動揺してるの？
Oh, I see what you're trying to do, episode, but you won't win me over. I will die on this OTP hill! But yeah, as it turned out, Aoyuki had come up with Mushroom based on a naming convention for Haru amongst the first geners, which, yeah, might have come off as bad if she had been referencing another woman when naming her friend, but the idea was that she was trying to give Masho the same amount of admiration Haru's friends had given to her, so it worked out. Likewise, Awa-chan was meant to show Masho's familiarity to Aoyuki's nervous twitches where she'd say Awa. Cute stuff that ended with the classic bit of the characters referring to each other by their new nicknames for the first time, but silenced for, I guess, a little artistic flair. It was nice at least. The episode proper opened with a slightly unrelated segment to the rest of it. I mean, it did lead nicely into the next one, but it also didn't feature Masho and was more of an individual misadventure with Aoyuki. Not complaining, mind you, as I do think the show needs a few more solo adventures with all of the VTubers of this show. Personally, I'd love to see what Alice does in her private time, which would probably involve building up her collection. Anyway, on the stream, Aoyuki recalled a time when she had trouble finding any Gacha Zero on the store shelves around the area. And while she probably could have settled for other similar brands, I mean, I switch between Asahi and Keen all the time, she had established to be one of those loyalist types who would sooner Yamcha pose rather than settle for anything else. Thus, left with no other choices, she used the final option of many impatient drinkers and turned to Amazon or Awazon. Get it? And after getting a delivery notification, she tried to pick up her cases, but I guess even cute Anamu girls have to deal with that ghetto life every so often. Fortunately, she quickly caught up with her thief through the power of 16-bit graphics. And said thief had turned out to be a fan who I guess had put together who Aoyuki was IRL based on her purchasing habits. And she wanted to deprive her of her Shua trigger so that she could be Aoyuki all the time. So yeah, that's kind of a yipes on multiple levels. First and foremost, Aoyuki now had a legit stalker rather than the fun gag character in Alice who legit respected her privacy. And two was the fact that she could be doxxed if this fan hasn't already posted her personal info online. Now, thankfully, I think the segment did end with them suggesting that there wouldn't be any real follow-up to all of this, because otherwise that could lead into all sorts of melodrama, and I think it would just be better for this show if it remains a fairly wholesome slice of life anime. Anyway, Aoyuki also asked what she had done with all of the Gacha Zero she had purchased. Okay, between this and Nokotan, why is Makari suddenly becoming such a thing? Well, either way, I am going to start selling on it, so do check me out sometime. But yeah, realizing that the thief had never even drunk the booze before, Aoyuki gave her a can to try, which, yeah, of course room temperature canned alcohol wouldn't taste all that good, but I guess the point was that you're supposed to get used to it after a while, like a VTuber who chooses to change up their character, and how viewers should respect that decision. Again, and while I appreciate the good moral here about respecting the privacy of your idols, as they are just like anyone else, let's hope there's not too much follow-up to this other than Aoyuki needed to change addresses to avoid total doxing.
Do you understand?
Anyway, having settled into her new apartment, Aoyuki had invited Masho over as her first housewarming guest, as well as for a collab stream. And surprisingly, she did a decent job cleaning up for her guest. I mean, it's a whole lot than I would ever do. And she even cooked dinner for the two. And this led to some legit really cute interactions, with a lot of it shown through Masho's camera phone in portrait mode to really highlight how this was just a casual interaction between two close friends. Like, just little directorial choices like this really made it all feel incredibly comforting and inviting, which has been a major strong suit of this show so far. Anyway, for their collab scene, they were gonna let the chat dictate some possible new outfit designs for Aoyuki. The subject herself kind of wanted an in-between design for Aoyuki and Shua, which might be a callback to the fan wanting more of the former, and this was literally her being her halfway. Not a bad idea, but again, just hope that we don't have to get too much more of that faceless chick again. Anyway, for the first design, Mashiro made the living embodiment of Gacha Zero.
化学反応
実験を始めようか。
Kamen Rider build really did fall off in its latter half, didn't it? Fortunately, all the other suggestions were relatively more sound, including a China dress, cheerleader, goth loli, bunny girl, and bunny girl with Magia Beze pasties. And the final two outfits especially were actually quite good, including a fashionable boyish style, and a dress that cleverly incorporated the Gacha Zero lemons on it. And of course, this was all meant to show Mashiro's dedication to her friend, even when she was kind of trolling at times. Anyway, as they were wrapping up their stream, they talked about what they were going to do for the rest of their little sleepover, which of course involved the usual Yuri activities of taking a bath together. It was Mashiro who suggested it, rather than our usual horn dog and Aoyuki. As a result, the usual dom became the sub. Okay, jokes aside, they actually had a really cute exchange in the bath, but again, kind of surprisingly, the best part of this episode came afterwards, and this is kind of for a guy who usually likes his fan service. The two went to bed, and while Mashiro again tried to hit on Aoyuki, she also did a little quote-unquote sleep talking, where she admitted to having watched over her both as her partial creator and even as a fan of hers. From there, they just had an incredibly philosophical discussion on the effects that their online personas had had on them. Mashiro pointed out how the Shura persona had really raised Aoyuki's spirit and energy by opening up more to others. In turn, the former office lady who played the Snow Princess admitted that the Aoyuki persona really helped her find herself after she quit her original job. Granted, she did just see it as all an act at first, but as time went by and she learned from other VTubers, she realized that Aoyuki was just another part of herself that she could express through the ambiguity of their profession. Like really, I'm not even sure if I'm really describing the scene right, as there's just so many layers to it, on top of it just being a sweet exchange between two friends.
But wait! There's more!
For the final, and kind of trippy bit of the episode, the two had a little talk in a sort of dream space. I guess this could represent them actually talking to each other in their sleep to create a bit of a pseudo-inception effect, but whatever. It was a scene where we finally got some context for that cold opener. As it turned out, it took place right after Mashiro had one of your typical internet breakdown moments, where she felt overwhelmed by some negative troll comments, and Aoyuki had called in to try and calm her down. And while she ultimately gave her your typical positive reinforcement, it was exactly what most people need to hear at times when dealing with a little online toxicity. With that though, the episode ended with more Mashiro shipping, and again, while I will not bend on my OTP, I also won't deny that these two are kind of amazing together, so I'll at least give them that. And yeah, this was probably my favorite episode of the series so far. No, it wasn't the funniest, as that title still remains with the 4th Gen debut episode. However, it did have easily some of the best writing, by really highlighting just enough of the underbelly of online culture, and the importance of maintaining a strong circle of friends to support you at times. And it meant to do it by not being too preachy, and more just highlighting the second best pairing in the show. While I'm certainly not going to pretend like I'm some victim of cyberbullying, as the worst I get is a fandom not agreeing with the fact that I don't vehemently praise what they like, I do think it's important to recognize the negative effects it can have on people. And while I'm not crazy on the idea of this show covering these topics, as there's already more than enough of it out there, I did appreciate how this episode handled it. The first segment was about the dangers of fans that form parasocial relationships, while the second dealt a little with trolling at the end. In both cases, they thankfully didn't make it too dramatic and more highlight the good nature of Aoyuki and Mashiro. The latter segment in particular was more about the healthy relationships they had formed through their online personas and how they helped them define different parts of themselves that they had likely held back due to Japan's very group-oriented culture. Though, more importantly, at least for a good chunk of this show's viewers, it also had some excellent Yuri between arguably the original duo of the show, considering chronologically Aoyuki seemed to be friend Mashiro first. And it was beautifully portrayed through some great direction that really adds to the atmosphere of this whole episode. I'm not too familiar with this director, Hodaka Kuromoto, as I don't think they've ever directed a whole series, but between this and the 5th episode that they also did, where the 4th gens debuted, I'd really like to see more of their work, as they're clearly very versatile. Again, I hope this is the maximum amount of drama we'll get out of the show, but at least it served a good purpose, as it showed the strong bonds between the VTubers and their fans, for better and for worse. I mean, at least Aoyuki's liver got a break for a few days.
鉄板だが、彼女は化粧している風でもないからボツ。
Well, if all else fails, you can always try Makari, or at least that's what these anime keep telling me to do.
女が欲しいものは女が知ってるわよ。
歩き姉はお姉ですけどね。
Shut up, you stupid bird up!
ミラ、ダメ。そんな、ダメこのケチ
Shiro, look what you've done to the King of Knights.
料理に一番大切なもの。それは、心
Thank God she didn't say the other word. This was a bit more of the usual rom-com antics, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as it's entertaining. The familiars arguing over their daughter's waifu abilities remains endlessly entertaining, and even makes the cat being back tolerable. Meanwhile, Byakuya and Mira's relationship remains sweet as all hell, and I am looking forward to seeing how they'll spend their Christmas together. That said, the best part of this episode, and also kind of a new element for the show, were more interactions with the other evil generals. Alcyone and Spica were just kind of nosy busybodies, but Bellatrix stole the episode through her naughty imagination spots. And as we enter into what's likely the final quarter of this series, I'd actually like to see more interactions with these characters, as they're pretty entertaining, and do give Mira more characters to interact with beyond just Byakuya and Fomalhaut. Nothing much else to say, other than this was a cute build-up episode for next week's Christmas episode to look forward to. Also, can we get a little bit more of Bella's thighs? Thank you for watching, and as always, maybe check out some of our other content on this channel. This week, we're going to change things up on Sunday by reviewing the new Kamen Rider Gav. I think it'll be an interesting change-up, as it will be our first weekly Kamen Rider series review, which, depending on how good it is, it might even become a regular thing. Look forward to it. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and... hold on. Oh, my mall kit is finally here, and they delivered it to the wrong floor, because of course they did.